Hey everyone, I never thought I'd be writing this, but here I am. I guess you could say I'm the kind of guy who doesn't air his dirty laundry in public, but what happened to me feels too insane to keep bottled up. Maybe sharing it will help someone else, or at least give me some clarity. My name's Ethan, 33M, and my wife is Vanessa, 31F. We've been together for 9 years, married for 6. From the outside looking in, we were the perfect couple. The big wedding, the cozy house in the suburbs, and 2 beautiful kids, Olivia, 5F, and Noah, 3M. I thought I had it all, until the cracks started to show. Vanessa has always been a social butterfly, the life of every party. I admired that about her. She brought energy to every room, and her charm made people gravitate toward her. Me? I'm more introverted, the quiet one who prefers deep conversations over small talk. But opposites attract, right? At least that's what I believed. It started small, so small that I didn't even register it at first. Vanessa began dressing up more, nothing wrong with that, but it felt excessive. She used to reserve her full glam routine for date nights or special occasions. Now, she was doing it to run errands or grab coffee with friends. When I teased her about it, she'd laugh and brush it off. "Can a girl feel pretty?" she'd say, and I let it go. Then came the phone. Vanessa, who used to leave her phone lying around the house, suddenly became very protective of it. She started taking it everywhere, even to the bathroom. When I jokingly asked if she'd joined the FBI, she snapped at me, "God, Ethan, stop being so paranoid. It's just work stuff." Her work as an event planner often required her to deal with clients at odd hours, so I didn't think too much of it at first. But then, I started noticing how often she'd disappear for meetings or client emergencies that didn't exist before. The real bomb dropped at a barbecue party a few weeks ago. It was one of those big get-togethers Vanessa loves hosting. We had all our friends and family over, burgers on the grill, music in the background, and kids running around the yard. Vanessa was in her element, laughing and joking with everyone. I was standing by the grill with my best friend, Mark, 34M, when he suddenly dropped a comment that made my stomach churn. "You know," Mark said, grinning as he swirled his beer, "I still can't believe Vanessa and I almost didn't make it to your wedding." I frowned. "What are you talking about?" Mark chuckled, clearly not realizing the landmine he just stepped on. "Oh, you know, how she came to me the night before the wedding freaking out about the pregnancy scare." I froze. "What pregnancy scare?" Mark's grin faltered as he registered my tone. The one she told me about. You know, when she said she might be pregnant with my—" He stopped mid-sentence, his face draining of color. "T Ethan, I didn't mean—" The rest of his sentence drowned out in the noise of my blood pounding in my ears. I turned to Vanessa, who was laughing with a group of friends across the yard, completely unaware of the nuclear bomb that had just gone off. The party blurred into chaos after that. I don't remember much, just that I couldn't look at Vanessa without feeling like I'd been hit by a truck. Every smile she gave me, every laugh she shared with our guests, it all felt like a lie. I excused myself, claiming I wasn't feeling well, and locked myself in our bedroom to process what Mark had said. Mark tried to call me later that night, but I ignored him. Vanessa came up around midnight, her cheerful mood intact. "What's wrong with you?" she asked, sitting on the edge of the bed. "You disappeared during the party." I couldn't bring myself to confront her. Not yet. I just mumbled something about a headache and turned away. She didn't push, which, looking back, should have been another red flag. The next morning, I couldn't hold it in any longer. Over breakfast, I asked Vanessa point-blank, "Were you pregnant when we got married?" Her reaction was instant and defensive. "What? Where is this coming from?" "Mark mentioned something last night," I said, trying to keep my voice steady, "about a pregnancy scare the night before our wedding. Care to explain?" Vanessa's face went pale, but she quickly recovered, her expression shifting to anger. "Are you seriously listening to Mark? He was probably drunk and joking around. I don't know what he's talking about." Her dismissiveness lit a spark of doubt in me. Vanessa was a master at deflecting and turning the tables in arguments. Normally, I'd let it slide, but this time, I couldn't. "Don't lie to me, Vanessa," I said firmly. "Was it his?" She slammed her coffee mug down, the sound echoing in the kitchen. "You're unbelievable, Ethan. I can't believe you're accusing me of something like this. Mark is your friend, not mine. Maybe he's the one with the problem." Her anger didn't feel like the righteous kind. It felt rehearsed, calculated. My gut told me she was hiding something, but without proof, what could I do? The tension hung in the air as she stormed out, leaving me with more questions than answers. Later that week, I noticed Vanessa packing a small overnight bag, a bright red one I'd never seen before. "Where are you going?" I asked. She barely looked up. "Work conference. I told you about it last week." She hadn't, but I didn't argue. "When will you be back?" "Sunday night," she said, her tone clipped. She kissed me on the cheek, a gesture that felt more like a formality than affection, and walked out the door. As I stood there watching her leave, something inside me snapped. I didn't know what I was going to find, but I knew one thing. Vanessa wasn't telling me the whole story. I didn't sleep much that weekend. Every time I tried to distract myself, my mind circled back to Vanessa's overnight bag, her clipped responses, and Mark's accidental confession. Something wasn't adding up, and I couldn't ignore it anymore. Vanessa was supposed to come back Sunday night, but she didn't. Her excuse? A vague text saying her conference had been extended, and she'd be back Monday morning. That text was the final push I needed. The next day, I called Mark. He answered hesitantly, knowing he'd screwed up. "Ethan," he started, but I cut him off. "Cut the crap, Mark. I need to know everything. What happened the night before the wedding?" There was a long pause, and then he sighed. "Look, man, I didn't mean to let it slip, but yeah, Vanessa came to me that night. She was panicking, saying she thought she was pregnant. She told me she wasn't sure if it was yours or mine." His words felt like a punch to the gut. "Why didn't you tell me?" "I didn't know for sure, and honestly, I didn't think it was my place," he said. "She told me it was just a scare, and she'd handle it. I figured she was being dramatic." I hung up, not even bothering to say goodbye. My hands were shaking as I paced the living room, trying to process what I'd just learned. Vanessa had lied to me about something that monumental, and Mark had kept it quiet. My marriage, my life, felt like it had been built on a foundation of lies. When Vanessa finally came home Monday morning, I was ready. She walked in, looking more put together than she had any right to after a work conference. Her makeup was flawless, her hair freshly styled, and she smelled like expensive cologne, one that wasn't mine. "Ethan," she said, surprised to see me sitting on the couch. "What are you doing home? Aren't you supposed to be at work?" I didn't answer. Instead, I held up my phone, showing her a photo I'd found. One of her and a man I didn't recognize, taken at a hotel that weekend. "Care to explain this?" Her face fell for a split second before she recovered, plastering on a fake smile. "Ethan, seriously? Are you spying on me now? This is insane." "Don't lie to me, Vanessa," I said, my voice low and steady. "Who is he?" She rolled her eyes, dropping her bag on the floor. "Oh my God, you're being ridiculous. He's a client. We grabbed dinner to discuss an event. That's it." "Funny," I said, throwing another photo onto the coffee table, this one showing them holding hands. "You always hold hands with your clients?" Her face hardened. "You're unbelievable. You've always been insecure, Ethan, and now you're just proving it. If you don't trust me, maybe we shouldn't be together." The audacity of her response made my blood boil. "You're right," I said. "Maybe we shouldn't." Her eyes widened, not with guilt, but with anger. "You're seriously going to throw away our marriage over some photos? After everything I've done for this family? Don't you dare play the victim," I snapped. "This isn't just about the photos. It's about you lying, manipulating, and making me feel like I'm crazy. I've had enough." Vanessa stormed upstairs, slamming the door behind her. I sat there, staring at the photos on the coffee table, my mind racing. For the first time, I realized I wasn't just angry, I was done. The next morning, I called an attorney. The thought of divorce terrified me, but staying with Vanessa was no longer an option. She crossed too many lines, and I couldn't keep pretending everything was fine. Meanwhile, I hired a private investigator to get to the bottom of Vanessa's work trips and client meetings. If she was going to lie, I needed solid proof to protect myself and our kids. It didn't take long for the PI to deliver. Within a week, I had a folder full of evidence, photos, receipts, and even messages showing Vanessa's affair with her client. Turns out, he wasn't just one of her hookups. He was one of many. When I confronted Vanessa with the evidence, her reaction wasn't what I expected. She didn't cry, apologize, or even try to explain. Instead, she laughed, a cold, bitter laugh that sent chills down my spine. "You think you're the victim here," she said, her voice dripping with contempt. "You're so boring, Ethan. All you do is work, take care of the kids, and expect me to play house. I deserve more than this." Her words stung, but they also solidified my decision. There was no fixing this. Vanessa wasn't just unfaithful, she was toxic. A month later, I made my move. While Vanessa was out, I packed up her things, dropped the kids off at a friend's house, and left a folder on the kitchen counter with the DNA test results. Alongside it, I left a note that simply read, "Vanessa, it's over. The kids are staying with me. You can explain this to your boyfriend. I'm done." Then, I left. I didn't stick around to see Vanessa's reaction to the note and DNA test results. I didn't need to. My goal wasn't to argue or hear more of her excuses. It was to make a clean break. I drove to my best friend Mark's house, where I dropped off Olivia and Noah earlier. Mark opened the door, looking more somber than I'd ever seen him. "You okay, man?" he asked as I walked in. "Not yet," I said, sitting down on the couch. "But I will be." Mark didn't push. He knew I needed space to process. Olivia and Noah were playing in the backyard, blissfully unaware of the storm brewing in their parents' lives. Watching them laugh and chase each other, I felt a pang of guilt. They didn't deserve this chaos, and I swore to myself that I'd do everything in my power to protect them. Vanessa didn't call or text that night, which surprised me. Part of me expected her to show up at Mark's doorstep, screaming and demanding answers. But the silence was worse. It was the kind of silence that made you feel like you were waiting for a bomb to go off. Sure enough, the next morning, the explosion came. Vanessa's car screeched into Mark's driveway, and she pounded on the door like a woman possessed. "Ethan, open the damn door," she yelled. Mark looked at me. "You want me to handle this?" "No," I said, standing up. "I've got it." I opened the door to find Vanessa standing there, wild-eyed and furious. She was clutching the folder I'd left on the counter. "You think this is funny?" she spat, shoving the folder into my chest. "What the hell is wrong with you?" I stayed calm, refusing to let her bait me. "What's funny is you thinking I wouldn't find out," I said. "You lied to me, Vanessa, for years. Did you really think I'd just let it slide?" She scoffed, crossing her arms. "Oh, don't play the martyr. You were never present, Ethan. Always working, always too tired to even notice me. You pushed me to this." "Spare me the excuses," I said, my voice sharp. "You cheated. You lied about Noah's paternity. And instead of owning up to it, you blame me? Unbelievable." Her face twisted into a sneer. "You're so dramatic. Do you know how many men don't even bother with DNA tests? You're making this a bigger deal than it is." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. She wasn't just unapologetic. She was mocking me for caring. "Get off my property," I said, my voice cold. "We're done." "Where are the kids?" she demanded. "I want to see them." "They're staying with me," I said. "You can fight for custody in court." Vanessa's face contorted with rage. "You think you're so righteous, Ethan? This isn't over. You'll regret this." She stormed off, her tires squealing as she drove away. I shut the door, feeling a mix of relief and dread. The confrontation was over, but the battle had just begun. That evening, I spoke to my lawyer. Vanessa's reaction made it clear that she wasn't going to go quietly, and I needed to be prepared for whatever she threw my way. My lawyer assured me that with the DNA test results and evidence of her infidelity, I had a strong case for custody. It was a small comfort, but I knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy. Meanwhile, Vanessa took to social media, painting herself as the victim. She posted a long, rambling status about how I was controlling and vindictive, claiming I'd taken the kids out of spite. Her friends, most of whom I barely knew, poured into the comments to defend her, calling me a monster and accusing me of punishing her for one mistake. At first, it got under my skin, but then I realized something. Vanessa's need to control the narrative was a sign of her desperation. She couldn't face the truth, so she twisted it to suit her needs. I didn't engage. Let her have her audience. The people who mattered, our kids, my friends, and my lawyer, knew the truth, and that was enough. The next few weeks were a blur of legal meetings, custody arrangements, and emotional ups and downs. Vanessa continued her smear campaign, but I stayed focused on what really mattered: creating a stable, loving environment for Olivia and Noah. I wasn't perfect, and I had my moments of doubt, but every time I looked at their faces, I knew I was doing the right thing. Vanessa didn't back down. In fact, she escalated her tactics in ways I didn't think were possible. Her social media posts became more venomous, and she started dragging our kids into the narrative. A mother being torn away from her babies by a controlling husband, she wrote in one particularly nauseating post. I couldn't believe the audacity. She was trying to turn herself into some kind of martyr while ignoring the fact that her actions had caused this mess in the first place. But what came next blindsided me. A few days after her last online tirade, I received a call from Child Protective Services. Vanessa had filed a complaint, accusing me of being an unfit parent. She claimed I was emotionally abusive, neglectful, and incapable of taking care of our kids. The CPS worker on the phone sounded professional but firm. We'll need to conduct an evaluation, she said. This includes a home visit and interviews with your children. I was furious. Vanessa wasn't just trying to hurt me anymore. She was weaponizing our children in her crusade. But I stayed calm and cooperated fully, knowing I had nothing to hide. My home was clean. My kids were happy and well cared for, and I had plenty of friends and neighbors who could vouch for my parenting. The visit went smoothly, and the CPS worker seemed satisfied. But the fact that Vanessa would stoop so low shook me to my core. That night, I called Mark to vent. I can't believe she'd do this, I said, pacing the living room. She knows I'd never hurt Olivia and Noah. This is a new level of low, even for her. Mark hesitated. There's something I need to tell you, Ethan, he said, his voice heavy. Vanessa reached out to me last week. She tried to get me to testify against you. I stopped pacing. What? She said if I didn't back her up, she'd tell people that I helped her cover up the pregnancy scare before your wedding, Mark admitted. She's trying to drag me into this mess. Hearing that felt like a punch to the gut. Vanessa wasn't just targeting me. She was going after anyone who didn't align with her twisted narrative. What did you say to her? I asked. I told her to go to hell, Mark said. But you need to know she's not done. She's going to keep pushing. I thanked Mark for standing by me, but his warning lingered. Vanessa was unraveling, and I had to be ready for whatever came next. A week later, Vanessa's next move arrived in the form of a lawyer's letter. She was fighting for joint custody, claiming that I was alienating her from the kids. The letter was filled with lies. Accusations that I wouldn't let her see Olivia and Noah, that I was turning them against her, and that I was using the DNA test as a weapon to punish her. I brought the letter to my lawyer, who assured me it was a desperate tactic. The courts won't take kindly to her behavior, she said, but we need to be strategic. Stay calm and stick to the facts. The next court hearing was tense. Vanessa showed up dressed to the nines, playing the part of a grieving mother who just wanted to heal her family. She gave a tearful speech about how much she loved Olivia and Noah, how I was destroying their lives by keeping them away from her, and how she'd made mistakes but deserved a chance to make things right. I could see the judge's skeptical expression as she spoke, but I still felt a surge of anger boiling inside me. When it was my turn, I laid out the facts. Her infidelity, the DNA test proving Noah wasn't mine, her use of social media to attack me, and her CPS complaint, which had been deemed baseless. My lawyer presented the evidence calmly and thoroughly, and by the end of the hearing, it was clear who the court believed. The judge ruled in my favor, granting me primary custody and restricting Vanessa's visitation rights until she completed a parenting course. After the hearing, Vanessa approached me in the hallway. Her polished courtroom persona was gone, replaced by the bitter, spiteful woman I'd come to know. "You think you've won," she hissed. "You'll regret this, Ethan." I looked her dead in the eye. "The only thing I regret is trusting you in the first place." She stormed off, her heels clicking angrily against the marble floor. I stood there for a moment, letting the relief of the ruling wash over me. But I knew Vanessa wasn't finished. She never went down without a fight. The weeks that followed were quieter. Vanessa's online attacks slowed down, and I started to feel like I could finally breathe again. Olivia and Noah were thriving, laughing, playing, and finally getting back to some semblance of normalcy. I focused on being the best father I could be, pouring all my energy into creating a stable, loving home for them. But deep down, I knew this wasn't the end. Vanessa was like a cornered animal, desperate and dangerous. I wasn't sure when or how, but I knew she'd try something else. For a while, things seemed to settle down. Vanessa had gone quiet after the court ruling, and while I didn't trust her silence, I was grateful for the reprieve. Olivia and Noah were adjusting well to the new routine, and for the first time in months, I felt like we were finding our footing as a family. But, as expected, Vanessa wasn't done. She never was. It started with strange calls and messages. An unknown number began leaving voicemails late at night, saying nothing but breathing heavily or muttering unintelligibly. At first, I ignored it, figuring it was just a random prank. But when the messages escalated, some of them calling me names and accusing me of ruining her life, I had no doubt they were from Vanessa. I blocked the number, but she found other ways to get under my skin. One day, I came home from work to find spray paint on the side of my car. In big, angry letters, it read, "Liar." Another time, I found a smashed photo frame on my front porch, the photo of our family from years ago, before everything fell apart. The glass was shattered, and the picture was ripped in half, with her side missing. It was clear she was spiraling, but she wasn't dumb enough to leave any direct evidence that could tie her to the harassment. Still, I documented everything. Photos of the vandalism, screenshots of the messages, and a log of every strange incident. Then came her final, desperate act. One evening, I was at home with the kids when there was a loud knock at the door. I opened it to find a police officer standing there, looking serious. "Ethan Carter?" he asked. "Yes," I said, my stomach sinking. "We received a report of child endangerment at this address," he said. "May we come in?" I froze. I knew exactly who had made the report. Vanessa. The officer was polite but firm, explaining that they were obligated to investigate every complaint. I cooperated fully, letting them inspect the house and talk to Olivia and Noah. The kids were confused but calm, answering the officer's questions honestly. By the end of the visit, the officers seemed satisfied that there was no truth to the report. "Sorry to bother you," one of them said on his way out. "These things happen sometimes, but we'll have to file this visit in our records." I nodded, trying to keep my anger in check. Vanessa had officially crossed the line. She wasn't just harassing me anymore. She was involving the kids in her twisted games. It was unforgivable. The next day, I called my lawyer and explained what had happened. "This is it," I said. "I want her out of our lives completely." My lawyer agreed. The false CPS complaint, combined with her history of harassment and the evidence I'd been documenting, was enough to file for a restraining order. "This will be a game changer," she said. "If we're successful, she won't be able to come near you or the kids." Filing for the restraining order was a cathartic moment. For months, I'd been reacting to Vanessa's attacks, always on the defensive. But now, I was taking control. I wasn't going to let her continue to manipulate and terrorize me or the kids. At the court hearing for the restraining order, Vanessa showed up looking disheveled and desperate. Gone was the polished, calculated version of her I'd seen in the custody hearings. This time, she was visibly unraveling. She tried to argue that the complaint was a misunderstanding, that she was just a concerned mother. But my lawyer shredded her claims, presenting the mountain of evidence I'd collected over the past few months. The judge didn't buy Vanessa's excuses, granting the restraining order and reinforcing my primary custody of the kids. As the ruling was read, Vanessa's face crumpled. For the first time, she looked genuinely defeated. I thought I might feel satisfaction, even vindication, but all I felt was a strange emptiness. This wasn't a victory. It was just the end of a long, painful battle. After the hearing, Vanessa approached me in the hallway one last time. "You win," she said, her voice hollow. "Are you happy now?" I looked at her, the woman I'd once loved, and felt a twinge of pity. But it wasn't enough to forgive her. "This was never about winning," I said. "It was about protecting our kids. I hope you figure yourself out, Vanessa, for their sake." She didn't respond, just turned and walked away. Life after the restraining order was peaceful, almost eerily so. Without Vanessa's constant interference, the house felt lighter, freer. Olivia and Noah seemed happier too, no longer caught in the crossfire of their parents' war. I started focusing on myself for the first time in years. I reconnected with old friends, picked up hobbies I'd abandoned during the chaos, and even started going to therapy. It wasn't easy to unpack everything I'd been through, but it was worth it. Slowly but surely, I began to heal. In the weeks following the restraining order, I finally felt like I could breathe again. For the first time in months, my life wasn't consumed by Vanessa's games. I focused on the kids, rebuilding a sense of normalcy in our home, and carving out time for myself. It was strange, freeing, but also unfamiliar. I'd spent so long reacting to Vanessa's chaos that I had to relearn what peace felt like. But life, as always, has a way of throwing curveballs. One evening, as I was helping Olivia and Noah with their bedtime routine, I got a call from an unknown number. Normally, I wouldn't have answered, but something told me to pick up. "Ethan?" The voice on the other end was hesitant but familiar. It was Mark. "What's going on?" I asked, my guard immediately up. "I need to tell you something," he said. "Something I should have told you a long time ago." I felt my stomach tighten. Mark had already dropped one bombshell about Vanessa before. What could he possibly have left to say? "There's more to the story about the night before your wedding," he began. "Vanessa didn't just come to me about the pregnancy scare. She tried to convince me to call it off." "What?" I said, my voice sharper than I intended. "She told me she wasn't sure if she was ready, that she didn't think you were the right person for her," Mark continued. "I told her she was being ridiculous, that she was just nervous, and she should go through with it. But now I think she was using me as her fallback." I gripped the phone tightly, feeling a mix of anger and betrayal. "Why are you telling me this now?" "Because I've been carrying this guilt for years, man," he said. "I should have seen the red flags. I should have warned you." "I'm sorry." I didn't know what to say. Part of me wanted to scream at him, to demand why he hadn't spoken up sooner. But deep down, I knew it wouldn't change anything. The damage had already been done. "Thanks for telling me," I said finally, my voice cold. "But it doesn't change what happened." Mark sighed. "I understand. Just, if you need anything, I'm here." I hung up without saying goodbye. That night, I lay awake replaying Mark's words in my head. Vanessa's betrayal went deeper than I'd realized, and knowing she doubted our marriage from the start made everything hurt a little more. But strangely, it also gave me clarity. Her actions, her lies, her manipulation, they weren't about me. They were about her. She was broken long before I ever came into the picture. In the following days, I threw myself into creating a new life for me and the kids. I redecorated the house, swapping out old photos and furniture that reminded me of Vanessa for things that felt more me. Olivia and Noah helped me paint their rooms, giggling as they smeared colors on the walls. It was messy and imperfect, but it was ours. I also started reconnecting with people I'd lost touch with during my marriage. One of them was an old college friend, Claire. We hadn't spoken in years, but when I saw her name pop up on my social media feed, I decided to reach out. Claire was exactly as I remembered her, kind, funny, and refreshingly honest. We started chatting casually, catching up on lost time. It was innocent at first, just two old friends reconnecting, but over time, I found myself looking forward to our conversations more and more. One weekend, I invited Claire over for coffee. Olivia and Noah were at a playdate, so it was just the two of us. We sat on the back porch, talking about everything from work to life to our favorite childhood memories. At one point, Claire looked at me, her expression serious. "You've been through a lot, Ethan," she said, "but you don't seem bitter. That says a lot about who you are." Her words caught me off guard. For so long, I'd felt like a shell of myself, weighed down by anger and sadness. But hearing her say that made me realize something. I wasn't just surviving, I was healing. "I'm trying," I said with a small smile, "one day at a time." Later that evening, as I was cleaning up, I found a note Claire had left on the table. It was simple, just a few lines scrawled in her neat handwriting. "You're stronger than you think. Keep going. You've got this." I held the note for a long time, feeling a warmth I hadn't felt in years. Maybe, just maybe, there was hope for something better. I had started to believe that Vanessa was finally out of my life for good. With the restraining order in place, she couldn't legally contact me or come near me or the kids. I was focusing on building something positive with Olivia and Noah, and maybe, just maybe, with Claire. But, like clockwork, Vanessa found a way to force herself back into the picture. It started with a message from her sister, Lisa, who I hadn't spoken to since the fallout. "Ethan," the text read, "Vanessa's in bad shape. I know you're done with her, but I thought you should know. She's been telling everyone she wants to make things right." I stared at the screen, unsure how to respond. Was this another manipulation? Or was Vanessa finally facing the consequences of her actions? Against my better judgment, I replied. "What's going on?" I asked. "She lost her job and got evicted," Lisa said. "She's been staying on my couch, and she keeps talking about how much she misses the kids. She says she's changed." I didn't believe it. Vanessa was the queen of crocodile tears, and I wasn't about to let her back into my life. But Lisa's message still rattled me. Even if I wanted nothing to do with Vanessa, she was still the mother of my children. A week later, Vanessa sent me an email. It was long and rambling, filled with half apologies and vague promises. She claimed she'd started therapy, that she was working on herself, and that all she wanted was a chance to rebuild her relationship with the kids. I didn't respond. Instead, I forwarded the email to my lawyer and asked for her advice. "She's testing the waters," my lawyer said. "She's trying to see if you'll let your guard down." My advice? Stick to the restraining order. If she's serious about change, she can go through the courts. I followed her advice and ignored Vanessa's message. Claire, meanwhile, had become a steady and supportive presence in my life. We weren't rushing into anything romantic, but our friendship had deepened into something I hadn't expected. She was patient with me, never pushing for more than I could give, and her kindness made me realize just how much I'd been missing in my previous relationship. One evening, as we were sitting on my porch, I told Claire about Vanessa's email. "Do you think she's serious about changing?" Claire asked, her tone neutral. "I don't know," I admitted. "But even if she is, I don't trust her. She's lied too many times." Claire nodded, her expression thoughtful. "You don't have to trust her. Your job is to protect yourself and your kids. If she's really changing, she'll prove it through actions, not words." Her words stuck with me. Vanessa had always been good at saying the right things, but her actions had never backed them up. I wasn't going to let myself be fooled again. Vanessa didn't take my silence well. Over the next few weeks, she tried everything. More emails, messages through mutual friends, and even a handwritten letter left at my lawyer's office. In each attempt, she played a different angle, sometimes apologetic, sometimes angry, and sometimes blaming me for destroying her life. But I didn't budge. One afternoon, I got a call from Lisa. "She's not doing well, Ethan," she said, her voice heavy. "I think she's finally hitting rock bottom. What do you want me to do about it?" I asked, trying to keep my tone neutral. "Nothing," Lisa said quickly. "I'm not asking you to fix her. I thought you'd want to know. She keeps saying you're the only person who ever truly understood her." That comment stirred something in me. Not sympathy, but a strange kind of closure. For so long, I'd blamed myself for Vanessa's behavior, wondering if I could have done something differently to make her happy. But hearing Lisa say that made me realize the truth. Vanessa's unhappiness had never been about me. It was about her own choices, her own demons, and I wasn't responsible for fixing them. In the weeks that followed, Vanessa's attempts to reach out slowed down, and I started to believe she'd finally given up. I focused on my kids, my home, and my budding connection with Claire. It felt good to move forward, to start building something healthy and real. But life has a funny way of throwing surprises your way. One evening, Claire and I were sitting in my living room, watching a movie, when my phone buzzed with an email notification. It was from Vanessa. Against my better judgment, I opened it. The email was short, just 2 sentences. "Ethan, I'm leaving town. I need to start over somewhere else. Take care of the kids." I stared at the screen, unsure how to feel. Relief? Sadness? Closure? Maybe all of the above. Claire leaned over, reading the email. "How do you feel about that?" she asked. I took a deep breath. I think it's for the best." And for the first time in a long time, I meant it. Vanessa's email lingered in my thoughts for days after I read it. It was hard to reconcile my emotions. Relief that she was finally stepping away, guilt for feeling relieved, and even a small, buried sense of sadness. Not sadness for the person Vanessa had become, but for the life I thought we were building. The life I now knew was never real. But her departure marked a turning point, and I was determined to move forward. The first step was reclaiming my peace of mind. Without the constant threat of Vanessa's interference, my days felt lighter. Olivia and Noah seemed happier too, no longer caught in the tug-of-war of their parents' conflict. I threw myself into creating routines that gave them stability: movie nights on Fridays, pancake breakfasts on Sundays, and bedtime stories that always ended with hugs and laughter. But as much as I was focusing on the kids, I knew I needed to work on myself too. Therapy became a weekly ritual. At first, it was hard to open up, but over time, I started to unpack the weight of everything that had happened. My therapist helped me see that Vanessa's actions weren't my fault, and that holding on to anger only gave her more power over me. "You've already taken the first steps toward healing," she told me during one session. "Now it's about building a future that reflects the person you want to be." Claire continued to be a steady source of support. We spent more time together, not just as friends, but as two people slowly discovering something deeper. She didn't push me to define our relationship or move faster than I was ready, and that patience made all the difference. One evening, as we were sitting on the back porch watching the kids play in the yard, Claire turned to me with a small smile. "You know," she said, "I've seen you change so much over the past few months. It's like you're finally becoming yourself again." Her words struck a chord. For years, I'd felt like I was living in someone else's shadow, constantly bending to meet Vanessa's expectations and losing pieces of myself in the process. But Claire was right. I was finding my way back. About a month after Vanessa's email, I received a package in the mail. It was from her. Inside was a simple note. "Ethan, I found this while packing. Thought you might want it. Vanessa." I unfolded the tissue paper to reveal an old photo album. It was from the early days of our relationship, back when everything seemed perfect. Flipping through the pages, I saw pictures of us laughing, traveling, celebrating milestones. But as I turned the pages, a strange thing happened. Instead of feeling pain or longing, I felt nothing. The photos were just images, fragments of a life that no longer felt like mine. I set the album aside and went to join Olivia and Noah in the living room. They were building a fort out of cushions and blankets, giggling as they argued over who got to be the captain. Watching them, I realized that this, right here, was my life now. And it was enough. Claire became more than just a friend as the weeks turned into months. We weren't rushing, but there was no denying the connection we were building. She brought out a side of me I hadn't seen in years, someone who could laugh, relax, and dream about the future. One evening, as we were cleaning up after dinner, Claire paused and looked at me. "Can I ask you something?" "Of course," I said. "What do you want from the future? Not just for the kids, but for yourself." I thought about her question for a moment. "I want peace," I said. And I want to build something real, something that lasts. No more lies, no more games. Just honesty. She smiled, her eyes soft. I think you're already on your way. Vanessa didn't contact me again after the photo album. True to her word, she left town, and as far as I knew, she was starting over somewhere far away. I didn't wish her ill, but I didn't feel the need to keep tabs on her either. She was part of my past, a chapter I'd closed. As for the future, it felt brighter than it had in years. I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was living, and for the first time, I was writing my own story. Time has a way of softening even the deepest wounds. Months turned into a year, and the chaos that Vanessa brought into my life became a distant memory. My days were filled with laughter, stability, and a growing sense of contentment that I hadn't felt in years. Olivia and Noah were thriving, and Claire had become an irreplaceable part of our lives. Rebuilding with Claire wasn't about rushing into something new. It was about learning to trust again, not just in someone else but in myself. She was patient, kind, and, most importantly, real. There were no games, no manipulations, no hidden agendas. Just two people figuring out how to build something meaningful together. One Saturday morning, as we were making pancakes with the kids, Noah tugged on Claire's sleeve. "Are you gonna live with us forever?" he asked innocently. Claire smiled, glancing at me before kneeling down to his level. "That depends," she said gently. "Would you like that?" "Yeah," Noah said enthusiastically, and Olivia chimed in with an emphatic nod. The moment was sweet, but also revealing. Claire had become more than just a visitor in our lives. She was part of our family. And it wasn't just the kids who felt that way. I did too. As life settled into a rhythm, I took time to reflect on everything that had happened. Therapy had been a huge part of my journey, helping me understand the patterns I'd fallen into with Vanessa and why I'd ignored so many red flags. But beyond the introspection, it was the simple things that helped me heal. Bedtime stories with Olivia and Noah, long walks with Claire, and the quiet moments when I realized I was no longer looking over my shoulder, waiting for the next blow to fall. One evening, as Claire and I were sitting on the back porch, she turned to me with a thoughtful expression. "Have you ever thought about what you want next?" she asked. "What do you mean?" I said, sipping my coffee. "For yourself. For us. For the future." Her question wasn't unexpected, but it still caught me off guard. For so long, my focus had been on surviving, on protecting the kids, keeping Vanessa at bay, and rebuilding my life. The idea of looking forward, of dreaming again, felt foreign but exciting. "I want stability," I said after a moment. "For the kids, for us. I want to build something that lasts." She smiled. "I think we're already doing that." A few weeks later, I decided to take the next step. Claire and I were sitting in the living room after the kids had gone to bed, and I reached into my pocket, pulling out a small box. Her eyes widened as I opened it, revealing a simple but elegant ring. "Claire," I said, my voice steady, "I don't want to rush anything, but I know what I want. You've been my rock, my safe place, and you've shown me what real love looks like. Will you marry me?" Her eyes filled with tears, and she nodded, smiling through them. "Yes," she said softly. 1,000 times yes." The proposal wasn't flashy, and the wedding that followed wasn't either. It was small and intimate, with just a handful of close friends and family. Olivia and Noah stood beside us as we exchanged vows, their smiles brighter than the sun. As I looked into Claire's eyes, I felt a sense of peace and certainty I'd never felt before. This wasn't about erasing the past. It was about building something new, something real. Vanessa, as far as I knew, had stayed true to her word and left town for good. I didn't check in on her, and I didn't feel the need to. She was part of a chapter I'd closed, a lesson learned but not a wound I carried anymore. I wished her no harm, but I also wished her no place in my life. Claire and I started our new life together with a sense of hope and purpose. It wasn't perfect, no life ever is, but it was honest, and it was ours. For the first time in years, I felt like I wasn't just surviving. I was living, truly living, with people who loved me for who I was. A year after Claire and I got married, I found myself reflecting on everything that had led me to this moment. It was a quiet Saturday morning. The kids were playing in the backyard. Claire was reading on the porch swing, and I was sipping coffee, feeling something I hadn't felt in years, complete peace. Looking back, it was hard to believe how much my life had changed. When Vanessa's betrayal first came to light, I thought my world was ending. The lies, the manipulation, the constant drama. It all felt like too much to handle. But what I didn't realize at the time was that it was also the beginning of something better. It forced me to face the truth, to confront the things I'd been ignoring for too long, and to start over. One of the biggest lessons I learned through this journey was the importance of trusting yourself. When Vanessa first started acting suspicious, I ignored my gut feelings, convincing myself that I was overthinking or being paranoid. But your instincts are there for a reason. If something feels off, it probably is. I also learned the power of letting go. For so long, I held on to the idea of the life Vanessa and I were supposed to have. I blamed myself for her actions, wondering what I could have done differently to make her stay faithful or happy. But the truth is, some people aren't meant to be saved. And that's not your fault. Therapy played a huge role in helping me heal. My therapist helped me see patterns I hadn't noticed before. How I'd put Vanessa's needs above my own. How I'd ignored red flags because I wanted so badly to believe in the person I thought she was. It wasn't an easy process, but it was worth it. If you're going through something similar, I can't recommend therapy enough. It's not about fixing yourself. It's about understanding yourself. The kids were a big part of my motivation to keep going. I wanted to create a stable, loving environment for them, something they could count on even when everything else felt uncertain. Watching them thrive has been one of the most rewarding parts of this journey. They're happy, healthy, and secure. And I know I did the right thing by putting them first. And then there's Claire. She's taught me what real love looks like. Not love built on control or deception, but love built on trust, respect, and mutual effort. With her, I don't have to second-guess every word or action. I can just be myself, and that's enough. She's not just my partner. She's my safe place, my best friend, and my biggest supporter. Vanessa? She's a ghost now, a part of my past that no longer holds power over me. I don't know where she is or what she's doing, and honestly, I don't care. She made her choices, and I've made mine. If I could give advice to anyone going through something similar, it would be this. Trust your instincts. If something feels wrong, don't ignore it. Dig deeper, even if it's uncomfortable. Take control of your narrative. Don't let someone else's lies define your reality. Gather the facts, protect yourself, and make decisions based on truth, not manipulation. Focus on what matters. Whether it's your kids, your career, or your personal growth, channel your energy into the things that bring you joy and purpose. Allow yourself to heal. Healing isn't linear, and it doesn't happen overnight. Be patient with yourself, and don't be afraid to ask for help. Believe in better. No matter how dark things feel, there's always a way forward. You deserve happiness, and you're capable of finding it. As I watched Olivia and Noah chase each other around the yard, their laughter filling the air, I felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude. Life hadn't turned out the way I'd planned, but in many ways it was better. I was stronger, wiser, and surrounded by love. And for the first time in a long time, I wasn't just surviving, I was living.